Captain Vex stared at the readout on his scanner, and wondered if he should have paid more attention during flight school instead of spending those credits on fermented algae. The blinking dot on his screen looked promising, which in his experience usually meant it was about to explode, shoot at him, or demand he pay taxes he didn't know he owed. Blix, what exactly am I looking at here? Vex called to his engineer, a four-armed creature whose nervous disposition made him excellent at finding problems and terrible at solving them without creating three new ones. Well, Captain, it appears to be a derelict vessel of some kind, pre-warp design, maybe 300 years old. The power signature is minimal, just life support running on backup cells. Blix's secondary arms were already fidgeting with his tools, a sure sign he was about to suggest something expensive. But here's the interesting part. The bioscanner is picking up one life form in suspended animation. Navigator Zara looked up from her charts with the expression she usually reserved for watching Vex make decisions. Let me guess, you want to wake up whatever's in there because you think it might be valuable. Not might be, Zara. Will be. Vex puffed out his chest, which on his species looked more like he was having digestive issues. Think about it. Someone goes to the trouble of freezing themselves for centuries, they've got to have something worth protecting. Credits, technology, maybe even information we can sell. Or Zara continued in her wonderfully deadpan way, it's a criminal who was frozen as punishment, a plague victim, or something so dangerous that whoever put it in there hoped it would never wake up. Blix's forearms stopped moving entirely, which was his version of pure terror. Captain, maybe we should just log the coordinates and report it to the Galactic Salvage Authority. They have protocols for this sort of thing. Protocols are for people who want to split profits with bureaucrats. Vex declared, already plotting a course toward the derelict. Besides, look at the design. Those smooth lines, that primitive but elegant construction. You know what that looks like. The silence that followed was the kind that happens when everyone knows the answer but nobody wants to be the first to say it. It's human, Zara finally said. You think you found a human ship. Not think, no. Vex was practically vibrating with excitement now. The proportions, the material composition, even the way it's just drifting out here like it's lost. This is it, crew. This is our ticket to the big leagues. Humans were legends in this part of the galaxy. Stories passed down through generations about a species so adaptable, so impossibly resilient, that they could survive anywhere and turn anything into a weapon. Most scholars agreed they were probably myths, like faster-than-light travel or honest politicians. The few who believed humans had actually existed, thought they'd all died out centuries ago in some spectacular war or pandemic. Captain, Blix said carefully. Assuming this is actually a human, and assuming humans were actually as dangerous as the stories say, don't you think there might be a reason someone put this one in a freezer, and left it floating in the middle of nowhere? Exactly. Vex slammed his fist on the console, which made a concerning cracking sound. They were saving the best for last. This isn't just any human crew. This is probably their greatest warrior, their most brilliant scientist, maybe even their leader. Someone so important they preserved him for posterity. Zara updated their course with the resigned efficiency of someone who'd learned that arguing with Vex was like trying to teach quantum physics to a houseplant. Estimated time to intercept, 17 minutes. And Captain, when this inevitably goes wrong, I'm putting told you so in my official log. When this makes us rich and famous, Zara, you can put whatever you want in the log. Maybe even write it in gold ink. Vex settled back in his captain's chair, already imagining the bidding war that would erupt when word got out that they'd found a genuine human specimen. What he wasn't imagining was that in 17 minutes, he was about to wake up someone whose biggest worry before going into cryo sleep had been whether the cafeteria would still be serving meatloaf when he got back. The cryopod was about as exciting as a refrigerator, which is exactly what it looked like if refrigerators were designed by people who thought chrome and blinking lights solved every aesthetic problem. Blix had managed to connect it to their ship's power grid without electrocuting himself, which counted as a win in his book. Readings show the subject is stable, he reported, all forearms dancing across various controls, bringing him out of stasis now. Though I should mention that I've never actually done this before, and the instruction manual is in a language I can't read. How hard can it be? Vex asked, which were probably going to end up being famous last words. You just warm it up and wait for whatever's inside to wake up, right? The pod began to hum, then hiss, then make a series of sounds like a coffee machine having an argument with itself. Steam vented from the sides, and after several minutes of mechanical complaining, the lid clicked open with all the drama of a pickle jar. Inside was a human, an actual genuine no-fooling human being. He was about average height, brown hair, wearing what looked like a maintenance uniform that had seen better decades. He was also unconscious, drooling slightly, and making soft snoring sounds that somehow managed to be both peaceful and slightly annoying. "That's it?" Zara asked, staring at the sleeping figure. "That's the legendary human warrior we've been hearing about since we were larvae. He looks so." Blix paused, trying to find the right word. "Normal. I mean, I was expecting something with more teeth. Maybe some natural armor plating, or at least intimidating scars." The human's eyes fluttered open, revealing the confused expression of someone who'd just woken up from the universe's longest nap. He blinked a few times, looked around at the three alien faces staring down at him, and said, "Oh, hi there. Is it Thursday? Because I'm pretty sure I was supposed to be back from lunch by Thursday." Vex leaned forward, putting on his most diplomatic voice. "Greetings, human warrior. I am Captain Vex of the starship Rusty Comet. We have awakened you from your centuries-long slumber." "Centuries?" The human sat up slowly, rubbing his neck. "That explains why I feel like I slept wrong. I'm Marcus, by the way, Marcus Johnson. I work in maintenance down on level 7. He looked around the unfamiliar ship with mild curiosity. "This isn't level 7. "No, this is not level 7, Zara said carefully. "This is a different ship, in a different part of space, several hundred years after you went to sleep. Also, as far as we know, your entire species is extinct." Marcus processed this information with the same expression most people reserve for being told the elevator is out of order. "Huh. Well, that's not great. I don't suppose you know if Earth is still around. I've got a job to get back to, and my supervisor gets really cranky when people don't show up for their shifts." Blix's arms had started their nervous fidgeting again. "Marcus, perhaps you should sit down. This might be a shock, but according to our historical records, Earth was abandoned over 2 centuries ago after some kind of ecological disaster." "Abandoned?" Marcus looked genuinely concerned for the first time. "What about my apartment? I left the coffee maker on." The casual way he said it made Vex wonder if they'd somehow found the one human in the galaxy with no survival instincts. This was supposed to be one of the legendary space-conquering super warriors, and he was worried about his coffee maker. "We should probably run some basic tests," Blix suggested. "Make sure the cryo process didn't cause any physical or mental impairment." "Sure thing," Marcus agreed cheerfully. He stood up from the pod, and immediately put his hand on the side to steady himself, which made the solid metal hull dent inward with a handprint-shaped depression. "Whoa, sorry about that. I'm still a bit wobbly." The three aliens stared at the dent, then at Marcus, then at each other. Marcus hadn't even seemed to notice what he'd done. "Marcus," Zara said slowly, "are you feeling all right? Any pain, unusual sensations, overwhelming urges to conquer things?" "I'm fine, thanks. Just hungry. You wouldn't happen to have anything to eat, would you?" "Doesn't matter what it is. I'm not picky. Back home I used to eat the cafeteria food, so my standards aren't exactly high." Vex was beginning to suspect that they might have stumbled onto something much more significant than a simple salvage operation. And the way Marcus had casually dented solid metal while barely paying attention suggested that maybe, just maybe, the human legends had been understated rather than exaggerated. "Of course," Vex said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Right this way to our galley. We'll get you fed and figure out what to do next." What they were going to figure out was that what to do next was about to become the least of their problems. The galley of the Rusty Comet was about as appetizing as its name suggested. Everything was beige, including some things that probably weren't supposed to be beige, and the whole room had the distinctive smell of recycled air that had given up trying. "Here we go," Vex said, presenting Marcus with a meal pack that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd heard food described but never actually seen any. "Standard nutritional supplement. It's got everything a carbon-based life form needs to survive." Marcus examined the gray brick with professional interest. "Is it supposed to be moving like that?" "Only slightly," Blix assured him. "The movement means it's fresh." "Great." Marcus bit into it without hesitation, chewed thoughtfully, and swallowed. "Not bad. Reminds me of the tuna surprise from the level 7 cafeteria, except this actually tastes like something." Zara checked her datapad. "Marcus, according to our analysis, that food is designed for silicon-based life forms. It should be literally poisonous to carbon-based biology. The crystalline compounds alone should have killed you instantly." "Huh." Marcus took another bite. "Good thing I've got a strong stomach. My ex-wife used to say I could eat anything. She meant it as an insult, but it turns out to be pretty useful." While Marcus worked on his meal, Blix had been examining the cryopod, trying to figure out how something so old was still functional. "Captain, I think there's something wrong with the pod's internal systems. The cooling unit is completely destroyed." "Destroyed how?" Vex asked. "Well, it looks like something punched through it from the inside. There are handprints on the metal where someone grabbed the edges and just tore them apart." Blix's voice got smaller with each word. Captain, I don't think this pod was keeping him in stasis. I think it was keeping him contained. A loud bang from the engine room interrupted his explanation, followed by the distinctive sound of critical systems failing in expensive ways. Oh, for the love of, Vex started toward the door, but Marcus was already standing up. Engine trouble? He asked, helpfully. I'm pretty good with mechanical stuff. Mind if I take a look? Before anyone could stop him, Marcus was walking toward the engine room. The crew followed, mostly out of morbid curiosity about what would go wrong next. The engine room was filled with smoke, flashing warning lights, and the kind of ominous humming that usually meant you had about 5 minutes before everything exploded. Their main drive unit, which was roughly the size of a small building and held together with prayers and duct tape, had finally given up the ghost. Oh, I see the problem, Marcus said, rolling up his sleeves. The plasma coupling is misaligned, and your magnetic containment field is running about 30% below optimal. Plus someone's been using the wrong grade of coolant. How can you possibly know that just by looking? Blix demanded. Same principle as the heating units back on level 7. Different scale, same basic idea. Marcus walked over to the massive engine core and put his hands on it. This might be a little loud. What happened next was the kind of thing that gets written up in incident reports and used as evidence in insurance fraud cases. Marcus grabbed 2 sections of the engine housing and simply pulled them apart, exposing the internal mechanisms like he was opening a particularly stubborn jar of pickles. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and something that was definitely not supposed to be exposed to open air began glowing ominously. There's the problem, Marcus said cheerfully, reaching into the heart of the engine with his bare hands. He grabbed what looked like a fusion containment coil, twisted it back into alignment, and slapped a bent piece of machinery back into position. Just needed a little adjustment. The engine immediately stopped its death rattle and began humming contentedly. All the warning lights switched from red to green, and the ship's power output jumped to levels they hadn't seen since they'd bought the thing. How? Blix whispered, staring at his instruments. How is our engine running better now than when we bought it? Sometimes you just need to show machinery who's boss, Marcus explained, wiping his hands on his uniform. The hands that had just been inside an active fusion reactor without any protection whatsoever. Oh, and you've got a small radiation leak in the secondary coolant line. I'll just pop over and fix that real quick. Radiation leak. Zara checked her scanner and went pale. Marcus, that section is showing lethal levels of gamma radiation. You can't go in there without a full environmental suit. It's probably fine, Marcus said, already walking toward the contaminated section. How bad could it be? He disappeared around the corner, and they could hear him humming what sounded suspiciously like elevator music while he worked. After a few minutes, he came back, still humming, with no visible effects from what should have been enough radiation to kill him several times over. All fixed, he announced. Though you might want to get your recycling system checked. Some of your waste management pipes are looking pretty corroded. The 3 aliens stood in stunned silence, watching this perfectly ordinary maintenance worker who had just performed what amounted to mechanical miracles while treating deadly radiation like a minor inconvenience. Marcus, Vex said carefully. Exactly what kind of work did you do on level 7? General maintenance mostly, fixing things that broke, keeping the life support running, making sure nothing exploded. Marcus shrugged. Pretty standard stuff. Why, is there something specific you need help with? Before anyone could answer, their proximity alarms began screaming, and Zara's voice cut through the noise with the kind of calm that meant something terrible was about to happen. Captain, we've got company. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace, and they're flying Crimson Horde colors. Marcus looked confused. Is that bad? That, Vex said, his voice hollow with the realization that their day was about to get much worse, is very bad indeed. The bridge of the Rusty Comet had never been designed for crisis management, which was obvious from the way half the controls were held together with tape, and the other half were labeled with handwritten notes like "Don't touch," and "Seriously, don't." Right now it felt less like a command center and more like a front row seat to their own demise. 3 ships, Captain, Zara reported, her fingers dancing across her console with the efficiency of someone who'd been through this exact scenario too many times. Heavy cruiser class, armed to the teeth, and they're broadcasting the standard Crimson Horde surrender demand. Which is? Marcus asked, settling into an empty chair with the casual interest of someone watching a mildly entertaining documentary. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed immediately. Blix translated, his 4 arms working frantically to reroute power to their shields. The Crimson Horde doesn't really believe in negotiation, they're more of a take what they want and enslave whoever's left kind of organization. The main screen flickered to life, showing 3 massive ships that looked like someone had taken normal spacecraft and then welded every weapon they could find onto the hull. Leading them was the Bloodfang, a vessel so covered in spikes and gun turrets that it appeared to be suffering from some kind of metallic skin condition. "Attention, insignificant vessel," came a voice that sounded like it had been filtered through gravel and bad intentions. "This is Captain Skax of the Crimson Horde. You have 30 seconds to surrender, or we will demonstrate why resistance is futile." 30 seconds. Marcus checked his watch, which had somehow survived centuries of cryo sleep and still showed Earth time. "That's not very long. Is this normal for pirates?" "Marcus," Vex said, trying to keep his voice steady, "the Crimson Horde isn't just any pirate organization. They've enslaved entire star systems. They've never been defeated in battle. They collect species like trophies and sell them to the highest bidder. Captain Skax personally has a bounty on his head that's larger than most planetary defense budgets." "Oh," Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "So they're the bad guys." "Very much the bad guys," Zara confirmed, already reaching for the surrender beacon. "Which is why we're going to do what every sensible crew does when faced with overwhelming odds. We're going to surrender, hope they don't kill us immediately, and look for an opportunity to escape later." "Surrender?" Marcus looked genuinely puzzled. "Why would you surrender?" The question hung in the air like a bad smell. Vex stared at him, wondering if the cryo process had damaged something important in Marcus's brain. "Because the alternative is being blown into very small pieces." "But they're criminals," Marcus said, as if this explained everything. "You don't surrender to criminals. You report them to security, and have them removed from the premises." "Marcus," Blix said gently, "there is no security here. There's just us, them, and the fact that they have enough firepower to turn this ship into cosmic dust." The communication channel crackled to life again. "Time's up, little fish. Prepare to be boarded. Anyone who resists will be used for target practice. Anyone who cooperates will be sold to the labor camps. Consider yourselves lucky we're in a good mood today." 3 boarding shuttles launched from the Horde ships, moving with the confidence of predators who had never encountered anything that could fight back. Each shuttle was bristling with weapons and packed with the kind of beings who considered torture a recreational activity. "They're jamming our engines," Zara reported. "We couldn't run even if we wanted to." 10 pirates per shuttle, Blix added, his instruments tracking the incoming threats. "All armed with military-grade weapons. Plus they're wearing full combat armor designed to withstand pretty much anything we could throw at them." Vex slumped in his captain's chair, already calculating how long they might survive in a labor camp. "Well, crew, it's been an honor serving with you. Try not to give them any excuses to make this more unpleasant than it has to be." Marcus stood up and stretched, like someone getting ready for a mild inconvenience. "Where are they planning to dock?" "Cargo Bay 2, Zara said automatically. "But Marcus, please don't try to be a hero. These aren't the kind of people you can reason with." "Oh, I'm not going to reason with them," Marcus said, walking toward the door with the same casual pace he'd used to fix their engine. "I'm going to ask them to leave. And if they don't want to leave nicely, well, that's what security protocols are for." "Security protocols," Vex called after him. "Marcus, we don't have security protocols. We don't even have security." But Marcus was already gone, humming that same elevator music as he headed toward Cargo Bay 2. The 3 aliens looked at each other with the shared expression of beings who were about to witness something that would either be heroic or catastrophic, with no middle ground in between. "Should we follow him?" Blix asked. "Absolutely not," Zara replied. "But we should probably watch from the security cameras. I have a feeling this is going to be either the shortest rescue attempt in history, or something that gets talked about for centuries." On the main screen, they could see the boarding shuttles latching onto their hull like metallic parasites. In a few minutes, 30 of the most dangerous pirates in known space would come through their airlock, expecting to find a helpless crew ready for enslavement. Instead, they were going to meet a maintenance worker who thought radiation leaks were minor inconveniences, and fusion reactors were just machines that needed a firm hand. "You know what?" Vex said, settling back to watch the show. "Maybe we should have asked more questions about what exactly they kept in that cryopod." The first shuttle had finished its docking procedure, and they could hear the distinctive sound of cutting torches working on their airlock. In about 60 seconds, the Crimson Horde was going to get their first introduction to humanity. It was going to be educational. Cargo Bay 2 had seen better days, which was saying something since its better days had involved being used to store expired rations and broken equipment. Now it was about to become the stage for what would either be the galaxy's shortest hostage situation or its most educational workplace safety demonstration. Marcus stood in the center of the bay, hands clasped behind his back in the universal pose of a maintenance worker, waiting for someone to explain what they'd broken this time. He'd found a clipboard somewhere, and was making notes, because proper documentation was important even during what appeared to be some kind of security incident. The airlock door glowed cherry red, as the pirates cut through it with military-grade plasma torches. Sparks showered the deck, filling the air with the smell of superheated metal and imminent violence. After several minutes of enthusiastic cutting, the door fell inward with a crash that echoed through the ship. Smoke billowed through the opening, and through it stepped the kind of beings that featured in nightmares and cautionary tales. The Crimson Horde didn't recruit for their pleasant personalities or customer service skills. They were a collection of the galaxy's most violent species, all wrapped in combat armor that could stop a direct hit from a plasma cannon. Leading them was a creature that looked like someone had taken a spider, made it 7 feet tall, given it anger management issues, and then covered it in weapons. This was Commander Vrak, Captain Skax's personal enforcer, whose idea of mercy was killing you quickly instead of slowly. Well, Vrak said, his voice like grinding metal. What do we have here? One pathetic little being, all alone with a clipboard. He gestured to his squad, who spread out in a practiced formation designed to prevent any possibility of escape. This is going to be disappointingly easy. Marcus looked up from his notes and smiled the kind of professional smile he'd perfected during years of dealing with difficult customers and malfunctioning equipment. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Marcus Johnson, and I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises immediately. The pirates looked at each other, then back at Marcus, then broke into the kind of laughter that's usually followed by someone getting hurt. Ask us to leave. Vrak clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his species. Little carbon-based fool, do you have any idea who we are? I assume you're trespassers, Marcus said, making another note on his clipboard. This is private property, and you've damaged our entry door, which is going to require a maintenance report. I'm also going to need to see some identification and an explanation of your business here. Our business, said a pirate who looked like a cross between a rhinoceros and a bad attitude, is taking everything valuable on this ship and selling you worthless meat to the slave markets. Marcus frowned and clicked his pen. I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. This facility has strict policies against theft, vandalism, and unauthorized personnel. I'm going to have to ask you to return to your vehicles and exit the property. The pirates had stopped laughing. There was something deeply unsettling about the way this small soft-looking creature was treating them like they were door-to-door salesmen instead of the most feared raiders in known space. Look, little man, Vrak said, stepping closer and looming over Marcus in a way that had made entire planetary governors wet themselves. Let me explain how this works. We take what we want, you do what we say. If you're very lucky, and very obedient, you might live long enough to wish you hadn't. I'm afraid that's not how this works at all, Marcus replied, still maintaining his professional demeanor. You're in violation of multiple safety protocols, and I'm authorized to remove unauthorized personnel from the premises. This is your final warning. Final warning. Vrak reached for the plasma rifle strapped to his back. Let me give you a final warning, you insignificant speck of organic waste. What happened next was the kind of thing that gets reported in incident files and used as training material for what not to do during first contact situations. Vrak pulled his weapon, a military-grade plasma rifle capable of punching through starship armor, and aimed it directly at Marcus's chest. Marcus looked at the weapon with the same expression he might reserve for someone using the wrong size wrench. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to put that down. We have a strict no-weapons policy in the workplace. No weapons policy. Vrak pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt hit Marcus' center mass with enough energy to vaporize a small building. The air filled with superheated particles, and the distinctive smell of discharged plasma weapons. When the light faded, there was a perfect human-shaped silhouette burned into the cargo bay wall behind where Marcus had been standing. Except Marcus was still standing there, looking down at his uniform with mild annoyance. Now look what you've done. This shirt was already having a bad day, and now it's got scorch marks. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get plasma burns out of synthetic fabric? The cargo bay went completely silent, except for the hum of the ship's life support systems, and the sound of several pirate hearts beating significantly faster than they had been a moment ago. That, said the rhinoceros pirate in a voice that had gone up about 3 octaves, that's not possible. What's not possible, is the lack of basic safety awareness on display here, Marcus said, walking toward Vrak with the purposeful stride of someone about to file a very detailed complaint. Discharging energy weapons in an enclosed space without proper ventilation, failing to wear safety equipment, and completely ignoring posted regulations. Vrak tried to back away, but Marcus was already there, gently taking the plasma rifle from his hands like a teacher confiscating a toy from a misbehaving student. Let's see, military grade, probably stolen, and definitely not up to safety standards. He examined the weapon for a moment, then twisted it into a pretzel shape and handed it back. I'm afraid this is going to have to be decommissioned. The twisted metal that had been a plasma rifle clattered to the deck. Every pirate in the cargo bay was now staring at Marcus with the kind of expression usually reserved for natural disasters and tax audits. Now then, Marcus said, pulling out his clipboard again, I'm going to need all of you to exit the premises in an orderly fashion. Any additional vandalism or disruptive behavior will result in a formal complaint being filed with management. Management, squeaked a pirate who looked like he'd been carved out of granite and bad decisions. That would be me, Marcus explained helpfully. And I have to tell you, I'm not happy about having to fill out incident reports during what was supposed to be my lunch break. One of the pirates, apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of not being turned into a pretzel, started backing toward the airlock. Boss, maybe we should reconsider our approach here. Reconsider. Vrock's voice had acquired the high-pitched quality of someone whose worldview was undergoing rapid and unwelcome updates. We are the Crimson Horde. We have conquered star systems. We have enslaved entire species. We do not retreat from one maintenance worker, who just ate a plasma bolt and complained about his shirt, another pirate pointed out. Marcus was checking his watch again. Gentlemen, I really need to wrap this up. I've got a cooling system inspection scheduled for 1500 hours, and punctuality is important in any professional environment. Vrock made a sound that was part rage, part confusion, and part existential crisis. He pulled out a grenade, the kind designed to level city blocks, and activated it. If I can't kill you, I'll kill all of us. Sir, that's absolutely not allowed in the workplace, Marcus said, walking over and plucking the active grenade from Vrock's hand like he was taking away a cigarette. Explosives require special permits and safety clearances. He tossed the grenade casually over his shoulder. It flew through the open airlock, across space, and detonated harmlessly against the hull of the nearest Horde ship, where it left a scorch mark roughly the size of a dinner plate on armor plating designed to withstand orbital bombardments. There, Marcus said, making a final note on his clipboard. Hazardous materials properly disposed of. Now, as I was saying, you all need to leave. I'm documenting this entire incident, and frankly, your safety compliance record is going to need some serious work. The pirates looked at each other, looked at Marcus, looked at the twisted remains of their most powerful weapon, and came to the kind of unanimous decision that doesn't require discussion. We're leaving, Vrock announced. We're leaving right now. This facility is, not up to our operational standards. Excellent, Marcus said brightly. Please watch your step on the way out, and remember to close the airlock behind you. Energy efficiency is everyone's responsibility. The pirates fled. There was no other word for it. 30 of the most dangerous beings in known space, armed with enough firepower to level a small moon, ran away from one human with a clipboard and a professional attitude. As their shuttles detached and retreated to what they probably thought was a safe distance, Marcus made one final note, and tucked his clipboard under his arm. Well, that's sorted, though I'm definitely going to have to file a report about that door. Security is going to want to know how unauthorized personnel got access to the cargo bay. He was halfway back to the bridge when the explosion happened. Through the viewport, they could see the Bloodfang, the Crimson Horde's flagship, breaking apart in a spectacular display of secondary explosions and escaping atmosphere. Huh, Marcus said, pausing to watch. I guess that grenade was more powerful than I thought. Oh well, at least they won't be bothering anyone else today. On the bridge, 3 aliens sat in stunned silence, watching the most feared pirate fleet in the galaxy retreat at maximum speed from one human who thought the whole thing had been a minor workplace disruption. So Vex said eventually, anyone want to guess what Marcus did before he went into cryo sleep? I'm thinking, Zara replied, that we maybe shouldn't ask. The bridge of the Rusty Comet had never been designed for processing universe-altering revelations, which explained why everyone was just sitting there staring at the view screen, like it might suddenly make sense if they looked at it hard enough. Outside, the debris field that had once been the galaxy's most feared pirate fleet was slowly expanding into space, creating what would probably become a very expensive salvage operation for someone else. Marcus returned to the bridge carrying a steaming cup of something that smelled suspiciously like motor oil mixed with optimism. Sorry about that interruption, folks. Where were we? Oh right, you were going to help me figure out how to get home. Any luck with that? Vex opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, and finally managed to produce something that might charitably be called words. Marcus, do you have any idea what you just did? Filed an incident report, and removed some trespassers from the premises, Marcus replied, settling back into his chair with the satisfaction of a job well done. Though I have to say, your security protocols could use some work. Those individuals got all the way to the cargo bay before anyone challenged them. Those individuals, Zara said carefully, were the Crimson Horde. The most successful pirate organization in 3 sectors. They had never been defeated. Ever. In over 2 centuries of operation. Marcus sipped his coffee substitute and nodded thoughtfully. Well, there's a first time for everything. Though I have to say, their safety training was absolutely terrible. Who discharges a plasma weapon in an enclosed space without proper ventilation? And don't get me started on their complete lack of protective equipment. Blix's 4 arms were dancing across his control panel, analyzing the sensor data from the encounter. Marcus, according to our instruments, you were hit by a direct plasma discharge that should have reduced you to your component atoms. Instead, you complained about your shirt. It was a good shirt, Marcus said defensively. I've had it for 3 years, and it's just getting broken in properly. Plus, do you know how hard it is to find maintenance uniforms in my size? Everything's either too big or too small, and the pockets are never in the right places. The communication console began beeping with incoming messages, dozens of them, then hundreds. The entire local communication network was lighting up like a festival display. Captain, Zara reported, her voice slightly strangled, we're receiving messages from every ship station and inhabited planet within 50 light-years. Apparently, word about what happened here is spreading rather quickly. What kind of messages? Vex asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Mostly requests for protection services, Zara continued, scrolling through the flood of communications. Also some very generous offers to hire Marcus as a security consultant. Oh, and there's a message from the Galactic Defense Force asking if we're interested in a fleet contract. A fleet contract? Marcus looked confused. I don't know anything about fleets. I'm in maintenance. I fix things that are broken and make sure the life support doesn't explode. That's pretty much the extent of my skill set. Your skill set, Blix said slowly, apparently includes surviving weapons that could destroy small moons and single-handedly defeating pirate fleets. Well, I wouldn't say I defeated them, Marcus protested. They left voluntarily after I explained the safety violations they were committing. That's just good workplace communication. The communication console beeped again, this time with an official-looking transmission bearing the seal of the Galactic Trade Authority. Vex accepted the call, and a very nervous-looking official appeared on screen. This is Administrator Kell of the Trade Authority Emergency Response Division. The official began, his voice shaking slightly. We've received reports of the destruction of the Crimson Horde fleet in your vicinity. Can you confirm these reports? Well, Vex said, glancing at Marcus, who was examining his cup with the kind of attention usually reserved for complex mathematical equations. There was an incident. The Horde attempted to board our vessel, and they decided to leave. Decided to leave. Administrator Kell's voice went up several octaves. Sir, the Crimson Horde doesn't decide to leave. They decide what to enslave and what to destroy. They've been terrorizing this sector for decades. How exactly did you convince them to decide to leave? We asked them politely, Marcus called out helpfully. Though I did have to confiscate some improperly maintained equipment. Administrator Kell stared at the screen for a long moment. Sir, are you telling me that you defeated the Crimson Horde by asking them politely to leave? Defeated is a strong word, Marcus said, wandering over to join the conversation. I'd say we reached a mutual understanding about workplace safety standards. They realized their current practices weren't up to code, and they decided to pursue opportunities elsewhere. Workplace safety standards, Administrator Kell repeated slowly. You defeated the Crimson Horde with workplace safety standards. Prevention is always better than reaction, Marcus explained. If you maintain proper safety protocols from the beginning, you avoid most problems before they become serious incidents. It's basic maintenance philosophy. Administrator Kell looked like he was having the kind of day that ends with updating resumes and reconsidering career choices. Sir, I don't suppose you'd be interested in a position with the Trade Authority. We have several sectors that could benefit from your approach to safety management. That's very kind of you, Marcus said, but I really need to get back to Earth. I've been away from my job for way too long, and my supervisor is probably wondering where I am. Plus, I left my apartment unlocked, and you never know what might happen. The administrator closed the connection, probably to go lie down in a dark room and contemplate the nature of reality. More messages kept coming in, offers of employment, requests for protection, and what appeared to be several marriage proposals from species Marcus had never heard of. One message was from a group calling themselves the Galactic Peace Initiative, asking if Marcus would consider a position as a diplomatic intervention specialist. Diplomatic intervention specialist. Marcus read over Zara's shoulder. What do you think that means? I think Zara said, It means they want to hire you to have polite conversations with people who are causing problems. Oh, I could do that, Marcus said cheerfully. I'm pretty good with difficult customers, though I'd need to negotiate for vacation time and a decent health plan, and I'd want to make sure they have a good cafeteria. The food situation on this ship is honestly pretty concerning from a nutritional standpoint. Vex leaned back in his captain's chair and contemplated the new reality they found themselves in. 3 hours ago, they'd been a struggling salvage crew barely making ends meet. Now they were apparently the most sought-after security contractors in known space, all because they'd accidentally awakened a human who thought intergalactic piracy was a workplace safety issue. Marcus, he said finally, I don't suppose you'd consider staying with us for a while, just until we figure out this whole situation. Marcus thought it over, absently bending a piece of metal decking back into shape with his thumb. Well, I suppose I could help out for a bit. Earth's been gone for centuries anyway, so it's not like anyone's expecting me back right away. And you folks seem nice, even if your ship has some serious maintenance issues. Maintenance issues? Blix asked. Oh, loads of them, Marcus said happily. Your life support system is held together with hope and spare parts, your navigation computer hasn't been updated since before I was born, and don't get me started on the state of your waste recycling system. But don't worry, I can fix all of that. It'll be fun. Zara looked at her captain with an expression that suggested she was rapidly recalculating their ship's insurance premiums. Captain, are we really going to let Marcus redesign our entire ship? Zara, Vex said, watching another message come in, offering them a defense contract worth more money than their ship had ever been worth. I think Marcus can pretty much do whatever he wants. We're just along for the ride now. Marcus was already pulling out his clipboard and making notes. First thing we need to do is establish a proper maintenance schedule, regular inspections, preventive repairs, and a comprehensive safety protocol manual. Oh, and we should probably get some better coffee. This stuff tastes like it was filtered through a sock. As the Rusty Comet set course for the nearest trade station, where they would undoubtedly be greeted as heroes and offered contracts that would make them wealthy beyond their wildest dreams, Marcus hummed his elevator music and planned improvements to their air recycling system. In the depths of space, word was already spreading through the galactic communication networks. The humans were back. They were polite, professional, and absolutely unstoppable. They defeated pirate fleets with workplace safety violations and treated weapons of mass destruction like minor inconveniences. And somewhere in a government office, a very nervous administrator was updating the official first contact protocols to include a section on proper maintenance procedures and workplace etiquette. After all, you never knew when you might need to ask someone to leave politely. Say Marcus, Vex asked, as they approached the trade station, what exactly did you do for work before you went into cryo sleep? Marcus looked up from his maintenance checklist and smiled. Oh, I was the safety inspector for the Level 7 waste management facility. Pretty routine stuff really, though I did get Employee of the Month 3 times running for my innovative approach to problem solving. Waste management, Zara repeated faintly. Best job in the galaxy, Marcus said contentedly. You meet interesting people, solve challenging problems, and every day brings something new. Plus, the job security is excellent. There's always something that needs fixing. And as the Rusty Comet docked with the trade station, where they would soon discover that Marcus had accidentally started a bidding war between 3 different governments for his services, the universe quietly began adjusting to the fact that humanity's idea of customer service was apparently more terrifying than most species' weapons of war. It was going to be an interesting century.